So guys, now we go to the next step or the first step of this model or these methods, this approach, which is requirement modeling. As I told you in the requirement before we start, now you have to, it should be clear. The requirement modeling, that's mean we're talking about the system goal, what else? The scenario and the use cases. These three step. These three step. So we start. So in the requirement modeling, actually we capture the function requirement of the system. Capture the function requirement of the system. Also, we develop the function requirements by using, and then we develop uh, the functions using the, or we can say we explain the function and the behavior or the communication or the relation between these user functions. We don't have user function, we have requirement function. We have two functions. So right in this step we will as they say collect, gather, elicit the requirements. So we have two types of the requirements. The first one is function and non-function. So this is the first step, or we can say is the third step after the goal and scenario. And then also in this step of requirement modeling, we also present also the use case model. So also the behavior or the relation between the use cases. When we study the requirement modeling, we have different type of, we can say it's system. So when you're developing the system, you may this system maybe it will be green engineering. So engineering, you don't have existing system. You don't have existing system. So you start your requirement from the scratch. So just maybe based on the user only, because there is no existing system. The second one is re-engineering. So this you have existing system, but you implement. That's why they say redesign, re-implement. Okay. So the third one is similar to the second one, but in this system actually sometimes we use, for example, your system or the existing system running on, or it's designed for stand-alone machine, and now you want to design for we can say distributed system, or your system is before it's what we can say it's PC. In the PC now you want it as web based. So this is interface. So we have the existing one, and we design it in new environments. We design it using a new technology. Okay. Here maybe you have the design, but is the different that's the system. You have the system, not the design, and you want to design this system using new developments. So we have the difference between the second one and the third one. Here maybe new environments and new technology use. But here maybe you have this system not implemented. That's actually here we have I have example. If we talk about examples, okay, we are designing a gem. So here maybe someone, okay, the user come to you and I told you I want this gem. So you have to ask him all the question, and then you will collect the function and the requirement from him. In the redesign, there is one methods, or there is a what we can say it's game already system, already existing system, and you will redesign it. In the second things, same things, but you want to redesign causing different technology, different environments. The third one. So here the first model here is related to our method, which is here in these methods. Now we have, as I told you, we have the 3-step here, or 4-step. So the first one, we should to identify or specify the goal. The goal. The third is we should to develop set of scenario. The second, we want to develop the set of scenario, and the third, define or also develop the set of functionalities. So here functionals is which is function and non-function requirements. And the third, we have to describe the interface between them. So here the interface, actually this is the use cases. So we have, this is four step in the first step, which is, or in the first phase, which is requirement modeling. So we have to identify the goal, identify the requirements or the scenario, functions, and also the interfaces between these system and the environments. So guys, if you see here, guys, maybe you know how the goal is, maybe the goal, actually the easy one, not difficult. Scenario, functions, and use cases. You see here, you are, number two, I will talk about number two. It's important in our subject because, guys, by developing the scenario, you will learn how the system works. And then also, maybe you will revise your system requirement, function, and non-function based on the scenario. So the scenario, it's important. So the goals, what the goals? The goal actually is just describe the system, the general description of the system. And then the scenario, it's important one because actually I think it's important because our subject actually is based on we can say it's interaction between the system components. Not only, okay, you have the system and this system only interact with only one input, which is the user. No, our system here also is interact with many things. The environments, the input as the maybe coming from different devices. So once you develop the scenario, maybe you can say, you can share, okay, now you have an overview about your system. Set of the functions, of course, after you define the goal, and then you will have a list of function and non-functions requirements. After that, we have to develop or describe the interfaces between the system and the environments. So how we can develop that? We will use the use cases to develop or to describe the interface between the system and environments. So guys, as I told you now, the goal is just a description of your system. So maybe if just, okay, you go to your stakeholder or your customer and tell him, okay, what do you want? He will give you just, okay, I want system. The system is able to manage the user or the student problems or student marks or student financials, something like this. So this small description is the goal. Okay. So as they say here, the goal requirement here is the definition of the goal here. The goal is initial brief system description. Okay. So this goal actually should contains that's what the system is supposed to do. Okay, and what's inside the system and what outside the system. So it's once you start with one paragraph, that paragraph describe the system. So that's one, it's your goal. So what should be in your goal should at least describe what the system is supposed to do. Also something about what inside the system and what outside the system. Okay, something related to the function of the system, related to the outside and inside. That's mean environments, also what the current job of the system in case this happen. But just in general, this is the just in general, because you have, if you see this is, you see, okay, this is also, it's part of the function requirement or non-function requirements. So here just we describe it in general. So here example, as you see here, we have, oh, as I told you, okay, in general, you can write it by this way, but I think it's not, that's because we wish to. Okay, that's why I told you If you go to your customer and then you ask him what do you want, he will describe you the system that he want. So this is also we can say is the goal. Our goal to, because based on that goal, we can, as I said, there is no details in the goal, no details because it's just the user, even the user as the customer, he don't know what the details. He just want system to manage, for example, his business. Okay, I want system to manage my business. That's all. He don't know what's the details. So we put this is as a goal, and then we derive all the function and non-function and the use cases from this goal. So here an example of this goal. We say we wish to develop a student enrollment system that allows students to enroll in the subject, add subject, delete subject. So you see here, according to the view their enrollments. So if you see here, guess as you see, just general description. General description. Maybe it's not. We cannot say is this. This description is coming from expert people or someone is already. I mean, study this goal and see this goal is meet the requirement or meet some rules. No, just maybe it's come from anyone. The goal it can come from anyone, just from your stakeholder. He don't know anything. He say I want this system. So this is the goal. So based on this goal, if you see here, based on this goal, even it's as we see, it's general description, but we can later find some sub goal. So based on this, should be this system can is able to enroll student. This system able from this goal. This system able to add subject to, delete subject, check the enrollment, view the enrollments, okay, authentication stuff, and then so as we see here, we have just description. As we see is a general description of the system, and then we identify the sub goals. We can say this is also we can say it's possible to extract the following sub goals or following goals from this goal. So the second point, which is the scenario based design, we call it like this because in the end we will come out with design. So here is the step from the requirement. We have to design or identify the scenario. This scenario is important also to identify also if there is missing in the goal, as this second one is mentioned here. So this one also is the scenario is complementary to the goal. That's why it's both of them. It's complete each other. Maybe when you design your scenario, you will find out that oh, there is missing in the requirement or there is missing in the goal. So we have to revise. So it's complementary to the goal that show the sequence of step. So in this scenario, we have to list not only one. Okay, not only one. Don't be carefully. Not only one scenario. We have list of scenario. List of scenario. In case this happens, so this thing will happen. In case this happens, this is not exactly like this, but we have list of scenario. We can list all the possibilities. So in developing the goals, we are typically already built up of the scenario on how this goal will be parts. Okay, for this point, maybe we can, okay, based on the scenario or based on the goal, we can find, okay, we have this list of the scenario. For example, as we see here, the system is able to, for example, the first one is enroll student, add subject. So what the scenario of adding subject, what the scenario of adding delete subject, or what the scenario of enroll student. So we have to list some scenario, set of scenario. So in the scenario as well, we have many kind. This is even this one, but okay, let's do it also. We have different type of scenario. We have as set scenario, and the second one is visionary scenario, evaluation scenario, training scenario. So we have the 6-second slides, also more details about it. But okay, you can see here scenario, as we see, is as is scenario, where it will be used. Use when you collect your requirements. So it's used in the requirement elicitation. So both used in the requirement elicitation. So later you want to evaluate your system. Evaluate your system, so you can use evaluation scenario, which is in the client acceptance testing. You know this one, this client. So in the end, you come now and maybe in the last step, which is deployment. So in that deployment actually it's come after, maybe in the end of the software development life cycle. It's the deployment as related to the location. Okay, now you want to install your system, and then you have many location, you have many, so how you will manage that. Also you can use training scenario. So you see we have different type of scenario. So in each step you can use some of them. So our concept actually should be in the first two, which is just in the requirement elicitation. So here, as said, I told you here is describe the current situation. The current situation. Essentially is related to the future. You have some future design. I mean, something in the future. You want to do that in the future. Okay, here is, if you remember last when we talk about the different type of requirement, we have green field. Remember what we say about the green? Green is the first one, right? Which is from the scratch. But you in the future you want to design this. Also can be used in re-engineering. The second one, which is existing system. We have the existing system. So here we just use it in the describing the current situation. We have system and then we use it. So this is as is scenario. In the evaluation, you have the system now, the design, and then you want to evaluate this system. So use this. And then also the training in the deployment. So guys, this step now importance. Actually, I know this step, these two slides, this and the second slide is important. So here, how to develop the scenario. How to develop the scenario. It's just guidelines. It's different or based on your system. It's based on your system or based on your way to develop this scenario. But in the end, this is just guidelines. So what is the primary task? I mean, okay, when you start developing your scenario, you should also ask yourself about this question. You have now the system, and you say, what's the primary task of this system? So from the beginning, you say, maybe you can say, okay, for each task, I will develop one scenario. For each task, I will develop one scenario. If you go back to our system, for example, the enrollment system, maybe we can say, okay, for enrollment student, this is we will develop one scenario. Add subject, this is one scenario, and so on. So the first one, you have to ask yourself what the primary task of the system. So what the data will be, will the actor create, store, change, remove? Because also when we develop this scenario, why we develop this scenario? Because we want to use it for the next step, to just give to understand the system. We will understand the system to develop the next step, which is the use cases. Also the use cases will use it for the next step of requirement modeling. So here also we have to define the data that we can say is exchanged between the actors. So what the external chain? The external chain. This one also, okay, you have the task. You have the task, for example, adding actually this is for student. Actually, it's not related to our subject, but it's okay. For example, adding a subject. So what change that will happen when we add the subject? Okay, what the external change, what the change or the event that will actor of the system need to be informed about it. So here just guidelines to how to develop the system. So in general, as I told you, you have to focus on your task. What the task, and then each task, what, how can be done, and the second things, how the change in the system or also will happen. I mean, if this task is done, what will change? Because we will say, okay, if the user click this button, so the system should react like this, and so this is also we should do. Just keep in your mind what the change also will happen in the system. So that's why we say we should do also see the events each actors. So in the end, as we say, okay, the task is task observation. You should focus on the task and what will happen in each task, even what will happen as react or what will happen as change inside the system. So here another tips for finding the scenario. So how you find the scenario? So in these slides, actually, they told you don't expect that the user or the client will tell you everything. So you have to find another way uh, to collect and to figure out the scenario from the clients. So here we have a dialectic approach or dialectical approach, and this actually is based on the argue and the argument. So you have to argue, you have to ask, you have to uh, talk with the user or the client and try to figure out or derive uh, the requirement from the clients. So here one example of the scenario. I give you two examples. For example, here we have the warehouse on fire. This example, okay, there is two guys wasing in the car, and then one of them is driving, and the second one thinks notice there is smoke. So this guy, you see here, one guy he go direct, okay, and make a report after he see the smoke. After he see the smoke, his parent or his Alice, he make a report, and then Alice enter the address of the building. That's the fire is there. So description of the building, the location. So this is usually see here scenario. Okay, and then Alice is she confirmed the input and then she sent. Now the other is what we can say the officer there in the other side, which is shown. Okay, receive and confirm that he received. So here kind of scenario, one type of scenario. You can write it like story. You can write it as story. So this is a scenario. For me, I like to add a title. That's why I provide you another topic or another scenario. I mean, you have here to add okay scenario for example, sending and receive a report about this issue. So here also in the second step of the scenario, after you list this scenario, you have also to identify the actors. The actors. This is okay, no problem. You can just read it, describe what. But here, the actors of this scenario. The actors in each scenario, after you list the scenario, you just also list the actors of this scenario. So here the other scenario. So here, if you know that there is many social report. So in this social report, you know how it's work. Actually, just this one, when you are boring or you want something, you want to talk with someone. Okay, there is a report. They call it social report. So you can talk. You can tell him, okay, tell me a joke. You can tell, okay, let's sing, or something like this. So this is a scenario when this social report or when you come or how this robot start the conversation, initial the conversation. What will act of this robot? So in general here, if you see also description, the description. Actually, as you see in the task, or we can say it's this scenario is for initiate the conversation. So once you come to this robot, once you come close to him or close to this robot, so it will turn its face to you and then starting greeting you. So this is, you see, if you read it here, it's just what will happen between or what will happen between you and this robot. So and then maybe when the robot is uh, turn the face to you, and then the what will happen? The robot starting catching the face. After that, the user uh, analyze the face, or not the user, the robot analyze the face, and then maybe waiting your comment, or maybe asking you if you want something. So this is scenario of uh, conversation, starting the conversation between the user and the robot. So in this robot, or in this scenario, we have also the same, the user, also the social robot. So guys, this is important, but here if you see here is one scenario only. For example, for this, when you study, if you study, for example, the social robot, you have to list many based on your requirement also. Okay, how many requirement you have? Not exactly, as I told you before, based on the task. Based on the task. So this is related to the scenario. Okay, the function requirement. Actually, we can go for quick function requirement, and then you know this one. You know, I don't want to go for more details. Function and non-function. This few slides, coming slides, is only about that. So after the scenario, we have to formulate, or we can see how to develop your function and non-function requirements. You know what mean the function? The function is we can say the main task of the system, the main task of your system. While the non-function is, you can achieve something related to performance of the system. So in here, in our topic, actually, we focus about the functions, and also the non-function as for the project only, but for the function, because we will use it for the next topics. So here the definition of what's mean function and non-function. Okay, you can, as I explained already, this is the function in the task of the system, the main task of the primary task of the system, while the non-function is related to the performance, the behavior of the system. For example, we can say, okay, the system is available 24 hours. This is, we can say, non-function. But if we say the system is able to enroll student, delete subject, so this is function. Here, also description with example, the same things, but here related to non-function. I think, yes, this is non-function. We have here, guys, we can say is the third type. We can consider it as non-function, but it's the third type of uh, as some reference. Some reference they say is constraints functions or requirements, function requirements. So this one we can consider it as the non-function, or also some reference they put it as different requirement, which is the constraint requirements. This is the implementation, for example, you will use Java to design your system. So this is, we can say, is constraint. Okay, and some of them they say it's a requirement also. So just we have three types, or we have the two main two types only is okay enough. So here some list of functions. Okay, you know what's mean function. I mean, you know, this is some example of the non-function. We say, as I say, okay, the system able to you, okay, it's available 24 hours, or here as they say is the usability. For example, it's the system, it's usable, not only usable also. Okay, this is something is not related to the requirement, not related to the requirement. This is actually it's related to the non-requirements. We say is the implementation technology. As we say, it's that's why I say this is the third one, third requirements. This is the third requirement. Some because some of them they don't even put it as a requirement because it's constraint. We say okay, the guy he don't care okay, even use Java or use C. He just want his product or his system. So this one is not related for both the implementation, the development methodology that you use, the development environment. So this one it's constraint actually constraint, and then developer should try to overcome these constraints. Okay, guys.